Today is Tuesday, May 21st. We'll tell you why the leaders of both Hamas and Israel could face arrest warrants and what it could mean for the future of the war in Gaza. Also, another dramatic day at former President Trump's criminal trial as the defense takes over. Plus, which states are holding primary elections today and what's at stake, how people can start getting a less expensive version of Ozempic, and why OpenAI is removing a flirtatious-sounding voice from ChatGPT. Those stories and even more news to know today, next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. We start today with an unprecedented move. The International Criminal Court's prosecutor decided to seek arrest warrants against senior officials involved in the war in Gaza. Those officials include Hamas leaders and Israel's prime minister and defense minister. The charges? War crimes and crimes against humanity. The prosecutor says Hamas leaders bear criminal responsibility for actions in both Israel and the Gaza Strip. Alleged crimes include murder, taking hostages, and sexual violence. But he also accused Israel's government of enacting policies meant to intentionally starve Gazan civilians. Israel has said that's not true and that it's trying to get the humanitarian crisis under control. Either way, the court still needs to actually grant those warrants, a decision that could take months. If it does, the warrants could impact Israel's ability to fight the war. The country would likely face challenges trying to import weapons, and top officials could be arrested if they visit most other countries. For Hamas, the stakes are lower, since at least a couple of the militant group's leaders named in the prosecutor's application are already believed to be hiding in tunnels inside Gaza. And the head of Hamas's political wing already isn't welcome in most Western countries. Still, including them in the same application for arrest warrants does create an equivalence between a top U.S. ally and a U.S.-designated terror group. So President Biden condemned the prosecutor's decision as outrageous, and he again stated that the U.S. will always stand with Israel. Some American lawmakers also called for action to be taken against the court. Prime Minister Netanyahu says no matter what, the ICC's moves won't stop Israel from moving ahead with the war in Gaza, again saying it will continue until Hamas is fully defeated. Stay tuned. Leaders all around the world expressed their condolences for Iran's president who died in a helicopter crash this week. But those condolences actually came as a pretty big shock. Before his death, countries like the U.S. considered Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi a brutal tyrant, sworn enemy, and threat to world peace. He even earned the nickname the Butcher of Tehran. But yesterday, the UN Security Council stood for a minute to honor him. Israel's UN ambassador quickly condemned that decision, saying members of the UN might as well bow their heads to Adolf Hitler. A U.S. State Department spokesperson responded, since the U.S. is part of the UN Security Council and since the U.S. put out its own condolences, saying it's true that some of the worst human rights abuses happened during Raisi's tenure as president, but that the U.S. still doesn't want to see anyone die in a helicopter crash. Speaking of which, Iranian state media now says the crash was caused by some kind of technical failure. Even after Raisi's death, very little is likely to change politically in Iran. The country's supreme leader, Ayatollah, still sets the tone, and the next president is expected to follow his lead. For now, he approved the country's first vice president to take over. But an election to officially replace Raisi will be held at the end of next month. The prosecution has rested its case in former President Trump's criminal trial. It went through 15 days of testimony from 20 witnesses before handing things over to the defense. And now it's up to Trump's lawyers to try and call all of it into question. The defense team began the day by, once again, questioning the man who's crucial to the prosecution, their client's former fixer, Michael Cohen. Remember, Cohen already testified that Trump directed him to make a hush money payment to an adult film actress ahead of the 2016 election, and that Trump approved the plan to cover up that payment by falsifying business records. Well, the defense kept trying to cast doubt on his testimony by pointing to his own misdeeds. On the stand yesterday, Cohen admitted he stole thousands of dollars from the Trump Organization, saying he took the money because he was angry about his bonus getting slashed. Another witness Trump's lawyers called to the stand was Cohen's old legal advisor, Robert Costello, who says Cohen told him Trump actually did not know about the hush money payments back in 2018. But that part of the trial didn't exactly go smoothly, with Costello apparently making comments under his breath and rolling his eyes. The judge warned defense lawyers that he'll strike Costello's testimony if he didn't start to behave. Costello is expected to return to the witness stand today. The judge now says closing arguments won't happen until at least next week. After that, the case will go to the jury. Former President Trump spoke to reporters after yesterday's testimony, calling the judge a tyrant and the whole trial a disaster for our country. As you know, he pleaded not guilty to all 34 counts of falsifying business records. If convicted, he could face probation and/or prison time. So, to be continued. Well, the man in charge of the nation's top banking regulator has agreed to resign in the face of controversy. You might remember from earlier this month, the FDIC, aka the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, has been accused of having a toxic culture of sexual harassment, discrimination, and bullying. And a law firm brought on to investigate questioned whether the chairman was the right person to lead the organization. Well, this week, that chair, Martin Gruenberg, told his staff he would step down as soon as there's a successor in place. And that means it's now up to President Biden to nominate a new FDIC chair and for the Senate to confirm that nominee. Until then, Gruenberg says he'll keep fulfilling his responsibilities and work to improve the workplace culture. 4 more states are voting in primary elections today. Voters in Georgia, Idaho, Kentucky, and Oregon are going to the polls. There are congressional primaries as well as some local and state offices up for grabs. Georgia even has a state Supreme Court election that's being put in the spotlight because of abortion issues. Oh, and it's not a primary, but there's also a special election happening today in California. Voters there will decide which Republican should take former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's seat in Congress. We are now only about 6 months out from the general election. Much more news is still coming up for you, but first, this episode is sponsored by Boll & Branch. If you're looking to refresh your home for spring and summer, the best way may not actually be just new decor. That stuff does not compare to the difference soft, breathable, all-new bedding can make. Because loving the place you sleep and actually getting good sleep are some of the best things you can do for yourself. My husband and I have tried our fair share of sheets, and when we moved homes, we both agreed Boll & Branch's signature sheets are our favorite. So much so that we decided to buy a second set in a different color. We also chose to get our new duvet set from Boll & Branch because we know how high quality and comfortable their bedding is. And sure enough, it's cloud-like. Plus, Boll & Branch's signature sheets are made with the finest 100% organic cotton and are completely free from toxins. Sleep better with the softest, most breathable bedding from Boll & Branch. Get 15% off your order when you use the promo code NEWSWORTHY at bollandbranch.com. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com with the promo code NEWSWORTHY. Exclusions apply, so see site for details. Now back to the news. The ship that caused the Baltimore bridge collapse has finally been taken back to port. The container ship named Dolly had been resting at the crash site for nearly 2 months with the crew on board. The ship's operator says it's trying to work with authorities now to let the crew get off. But either way, the Coast Guard says the Dolly itself will stay in Baltimore for the next 4 to 6 weeks with all the cargo. There's still a lot of debris that has to be removed. But eventually, the Dolly will head to a shipyard for more permanent repairs. The Baltimore shipping channel has already partially reopened, and it's expected to fully reopen by the end of the month. Well, there's a new, cheaper alternative to prescription weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy. The digital pharmacy startup Hims & Hers Health just announced knockoff weight loss injections. Costs start at about $200 a month. And that's a big difference from the branded versions that can cost more than $1,000 a month without insurance. So how is Hims & Hers pulling that off? Well, the knockoffs are being made by compounding pharmacies, which are allowed to make copycat versions of branded drugs when they're in a shortage, which these weight loss drugs are. The FDA does not review the safety and efficacy of compounded products, though, so they're often not recommended. But Hims & Hers says it conducted its own research for more than a year along with medical experts, and that it's confident these drugs are safe and effective. Another online pharmacy, Ro, is also prescribing compounded versions of the weight loss injections. And the plan for Hims & Hers is to start offering the branded versions too once they're no longer in short supply. A nationwide restaurant chain known for its affordable seafood and Cheddar Bay biscuits is now filing for bankruptcy. Red Lobster filed for Chapter 11 this week and said it plans to sell substantially all of its assets. The company's CEO points to a few reasons for Red Lobster's downturn, like a decline in customers, rising food costs, and an all-you-can-eat shrimp fiasco. The last CEO apparently decided last summer to add a $20 unlimited shrimp promotion as a permanent menu item. Well, it turns out that cost the company about $11 million, and it led to shrimp shortages. Already last week, the company closed about 100 locations, but about 550 are still standing, and the bankruptcy should allow Red Lobster to keep them open and operating as usual while it works out a plan to repay creditors. People who use ChatGPT are starting to feel a little like Joaquin Phoenix's character in the movie Her. And not just because the movie is about him using an AI assistant. They're now noticing that one of the voices available on ChatGPT's voice mode sounds a lot like the AI assistant in the movie that was played by Scarlett Johansson. Her voice is pretty similar, and the demo ChatGPT posted online seems a little flirtatious. Users weren't the only ones to notice the similarities either. Soon after the demo came out, OpenAI's own CEO, Sam Altman, posted just one word on social media: her. When Johansson heard the voice being used, she says she was shocked and got her lawyers to ask exactly how it developed the voice. Well, OpenAI says it was just a coincidence. The company put out a blog post explaining that the voice was not meant to be an imitation of Scarlett Johansson, but it was actually another professional actress using her own natural speaking voice. Still, it decided to put that voice on hold. There are 4 others still available for people who want to use ChatGPT's voice mode. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, a quick break to talk about our sponsor, Trade Coffee. Trade Coffee is changing the way you experience coffee at home. They continuously curate a wide variety of coffees from the best small batch specialty roasters in the U.S., then make personalized recommendations based on what you like or may like to try, and every bag is roasted to order and shipped fresh to you by one of their 50-plus partners. From dark roasts to decafs, espressos to cold brew and iced coffee, you can discover the best coffee suited to your taste. And with graduations, Father's Day, and summer birthdays coming up, it's not too early to begin thinking of the perfect gift, and you can't go wrong with better coffee. I personally love that I get to try some different types of coffee and feel confident that they're all so high quality, and they really do taste so great. I look forward to my morning pick-me-up more than ever before. So give Trade a try for a month and see how you can make better coffee at home. Right now, they're offering 30% off your first month of coffee when you visit drinktrade.com/newsworthy. That's drinktrade.com/newsworthy for 30% off a month of coffee. drinktrade.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. And today's trivia question is, roughly how many miles per hour does the Earth spin? You can play along with us in our weekly roundup email that comes out each Friday. As for last week's trivia question, before embarking on a solo career, Beyoncé was part of what R&B group? The answer is Destiny's Child. Beyoncé teamed up with her cousin Kelly Rowland and 2 of her classmates to form the singing group. Her father served as the band's manager, helping them get a record deal in 1997, and her mother was their stylist. The group went through a few name and lineup changes, but eventually Destiny's Child became one of the most popular R&B acts with singles like Bills, Bills, Bills and Say My Name. Then in 2003, Beyoncé took center stage as a solo act, releasing her first album, Dangerously in Love. Destiny's Child released their last studio album in 2004, but Beyoncé kept coming out with more and more hits. And as you know, she became one of music's top-selling artists with sold-out tours and tons of awards. Now she holds the record for most Grammy wins ever with 32. Well, thank you so much for listening and making us part of your daily routine. We'll be back with another news roundup tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.